Hello YouTubers, welcome to frozen northern Illinois near Chicago. We finally got above zero today. This is January 2024. I am presenting this video to show a buddy of mine what I put together for him for his vintage Hup Mobile. The car came with a directional and brakes. He replaced the incandescent lights with LED lights for the turn signals and the rear brake lights. So the system was kind of a convoluted mess. The car is a 6-volt positive ground, and there was a 12-volt converter to convert it to a 12-volt negative ground. Then it had to go through a solid state flasher because the LED lights are LED, and a regular thermal flasher, like in the old cars in the old days, would not work. So all these components did not work very well together. During normal operation, when the car was off, everything seemed to work. As soon as he'd start the engine and run it, and it was running, the system would quit working. So I tried to fix it, tried to figure out what was wrong, and I could not figure it out. It was all boggling. I have a suspicion that there was a problem with positive 12 volt or positive 6 volt ground on the car and a negative 6 volt on this converter, and something to do with the electronic flasher. It just convoluted. So I came up with this board for my buddy, and what it is I've got terminal blocks here for the different components. The first one will start here. We've got 2 pins that will be tied to the 12 volt converter. The next 2 pins are going to be tied to your brakes on the car. So this is isolated, so this will be tied to the negative or positive ground of the car, and that's the only part of this that gets tied to the chassis of the car. This comes from the 12 volt converter. Now this other 2 groups of 3 terminal blocks go to your directionals on the front and the rear. This is for the front, which is represented by, I'll show you the board in a second, and these are the rear, left and right, and 12 volt common. The next terminal block is, I put in an extra optional terminal block for tying a external switch for emergency flashers or hazards. And then the last block is a 3-wire terminal that will go to the turn signal lever arm. So I'm going to back it off here a little bit, reposition it so you can see the rest. Let's see, let's get in a little bit closer. Now, this board represents the car. The red lights represent the tail lights. The clear bulbs are actually yellow or amber. Those represent the front of the car. Okay, as you can see, these wires go to the front and rear of the car. There's 3 pins. The leftmost pin is positive 12 volts, which will be fed to both LEDs in the front, and then in the rear, the wiring will be 3 wires to the front, 3 wires to the back. 1 wire is going to be 12 volts common to both bulbs, and then the other 2 wires are the negative of the 2 LEDs. I said bulbs on LEDs. So these are going to be LEDs represented by LEDs on the car. This here is a terminal block that's going to be tied to your brake switch. This represents the, let me back it off a little bit. This button is going to represent the brake switch. So you've got one side of this block going to chassis negative 6 volts or positive 6 volt positive ground, and then the other wire goes to the switch. So this simulates the brake switch. So when you hit the pedal, this is simulating the pedal. Then I have this switch here. This is a 3 position. Central is off, center position is off. Left is for the left turn signal, right is for the right turn signal. So when I flip the switch, it represents the lever arm on your dashboard. So kind of like your left and then your right. The last is a emergency switch, is optional. This switch, the turn signal switch, supposedly has a hazard option on it. You pull a red button and it should short these 2 wires out and activate the emergency flashers. So that is an overview of what it works. I have this, it's a relay. I just added that because the flasher in this is incorporated in the board and it's solid state and there's no sound. So I just added a relay strictly for sound, and that's it, the old-fashioned clicking sound of a turn signal. So right now I have one terminal for the brakes now going through the switch, out of the switch, through the battery, which represents 6-volt battery from the car, and then back to the other terminal. So when I hit the brakes, this is hitting the brake pedal, it sends 12 volts to that terminal, and you'll see the LED comes on. It indicates that it's seeing the brake light. So I put a pilot light on to indicate when the brake light is hit. And I have, this is a 6 volts, represented the 6 volts of the car. This here is an external power supply. That's going to represent the 12 volts coming out of the converter. And you can see I got 12.3 volts coming out of there. And that comes around and comes into this terminal. That provides the power for this board. And as you can see, this LED here, that's the cadence. That's the actual built-in flasher. The flasher's running all the time because it's such a low current. It's a lower current than the 12-volt converter, so it's very little power. It's being drawn by this board. Okay, so now I'm going to back off and I'm going to demonstrate it. So now, since we have 12 volts here, that provides the power to the LEDs for the front running lights and the rear brake lights. So, this also doubles as a pilot light to tell you 12 volts is getting to this board. Okay, first thing we're going to do is simulate brake lights. So when I hit this representing the pedal, these two brake lights will come on. Okay, and we have the pilot light indicated that it's seeing the signal from the brake pedal from the car. Okay, so that works fine. Next we have directionals. Now this switch, I'm going to flip it to the left. That should be the left signals. So this is the left side of the car, that's the right side of the car. This is the front, that's the rear. So as you can see, the left flashers front and rear are flashing. I flip the lever back to center and it goes back to the rest mode. Now I flip it to the right and you can see the, let me turn this light off. You can see the front directional and the rear directional are flashing. So we got the right signal, that's working properly. Okay, now we want to simulate an emergency or hazard condition. This is the optional switch, but this signal should give you that feature. So this may not be needed. I put it in there as an option because I'm sending this to Texas, so it's easier just to build it now and then try to add it later. So I'm going to put the flasher hazard lights on, and you can see all 4 lights are flashing. The 2 front, the 2 rear, left and right. So that's basically it. As you can see, you can hear the relay clicking. This actually has 2 contacts that I didn't even use, so if for any reason he wants to add an external pilot light on the dashboard, he could just run it through the contacts on this relay that are dry contacts. They're not tied to anything else, and that's how a relay works. So he should be able to just run the car 6 volts to drive a pilot light on the dashboard. Okay, now let's kill the hazards. Oh, now the other thing is when you hit the brake lights stay on steady to show that you're hitting the brakes, even though the hazards are on. Same goes for the directionals. Okay, we turn the hazards off, we turn the directional on, and we hit the brakes, and both brake lights go on. Now let's go to the right turn signal, and hit the brakes, both brake lights are on. So the brake lights have a priority over the turn signal. So just an FYI. That's basically it. The board should eliminate any of these issues because it's totally isolated. The only point that is being tied to the car chassis ground, which happens to be 6-volt positive, is one of these terminals. By the way, this terminal block I wired it up in such a way, this is not polarity sensitive, so you don't have to worry about polarity at all. Okay? When you plug in the LED lights, you're going to have to make sure that you have the 12 volts, which is common to both the front, and 12 volts common to both of the rear. So I've got 12 volts going to both lights, and then to control each one separately, I have the negative lead of each LED going to the control box. So you have to find out what the polarity of the LEDs are before you plug it in this board. And these terminals are plus 12 volts, left and right. Plus 12 volts, left and right. This is front and this is rear block. Okay? So that's basically it. It works nice. And I'm going to send a video to my buddy and ship the board to him. And ideally, it's what's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13 wires, assuming we don't need their emergency light. But everything's on screw terminals, easy peasy. Should be no problem hooking it up, and then maybe coming up with some sort of enclosure to keep the back of the board from shorting against anything. So, thanks for listening, and hopefully somebody will get a kick out of this. Unfortunately, I'm not into surface mount technology, so it's not real small, but it's not real big. It'll fit under a dash of a car. All right, have a great day. Happy New Year, all. Bye.